It was supposed to be a chill weekend. Just two guys, best friends since high school, crashing at a beach house for a few days before fall semester started. Nothing dramatic, no pressure. But something happened that weekend, something I never saw coming, and it changed everything between us. I've known Julian since we were 16. We met in gym class and clicked fast. He was one of those effortlessly cool types. Tall, tan, soccer player build, always had some story to tell, or some girl texting him. I was more low-key, the artsy kid. Quieter, observant, always sketching or messing around with a camera. Somehow, despite our differences, we became tight. He never knew I liked guys. I never brought it up. It just wasn't relevant, or at least that's what I told myself. We'd been roommates for a year already at that point, and I'd gotten good at not letting my eyes linger when he walked around shirtless after practice, or when we both hit the beach and he peeled off his tank top without thinking twice. I kept my distance. I knew where the line was, or I thought I did. Julian's uncle had a beach house just outside Santa Cruz. Mid-century, ocean view, private little outdoor shower setup that opened off the deck. When Julian suggested we spend a long weekend there before school started, I didn't hesitate. "You need a reset, bro," he said, grinning as he tossed a duffel into the back of my car. No deadlines, no emails, just sun and beer. We drove up early Friday morning. Music blasting, windows down. It felt good, easy. By the time we pulled into the driveway and unloaded our stuff, the vibe was perfect. We grilled burgers, swam, drank too much cheap beer. The whole day melted into that kind of peaceful exhaustion you only get from salt air and too much sun. That night, Julian passed out early on the couch. I stayed up editing some photos I'd taken on the beach. At some point, I noticed the sound of the outdoor shower running. Thought maybe he'd woken up for a rinse. No big deal. But then I looked up from my screen, and through the sliding glass door, I saw him. And I mean, I really saw him. The way the shower was positioned, you couldn't see everything from the deck, but from the corner of the living room, if the door was open just enough and the lights were off, yeah, you could see him. The water streaming down his back, his head tilted up, hands running through his hair, steam rising around him, skin glistening. He looked so peaceful, so raw. And I couldn't stop looking. I know what you're thinking, and you're right. I should have looked away. But I didn't. I froze. Something about the way the water moved across his body, the way his muscles flexed when he reached for the soap. It felt private, intimate. Like I was intruding, but I still couldn't move. And then it happened. He turned. Not fully, just enough to face the other way, and caught me in the reflection. The shower wall was slightly reflective. The glass behind him fogged just enough to distort, but not hide, the outline of me standing there. Our eyes locked. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he reached for the handle, turned off the water, and stepped out. Just like that, I backed away from the glass door, heart in my throat, panic setting in. What had I done? What was he thinking? Would he yell? Walk in dripping wet and furious? I stood frozen in the kitchen, palms sweating, trying to figure out what I'd say. What the hell could I say? A minute later, the door slid open. Julian stepped in, towel slung low on his hips, hair still damp, eyes locked on mine. "You see something you like?" he asked. My brain short-circuited. Julian's voice wasn't angry, not sarcastic, not even teasing, just flat, calm. But there was something under the surface, something unreadable in his eyes. I stood there like an idiot, holding a water bottle I didn't remember grabbing, mouth slightly open, searching for words that wouldn't come. I swallowed. No, I wasn't. He raised an eyebrow, slowly stepping closer, still dripping from the shower, towel clinging low to his hips. "You weren't, what?" I looked away, heat crawling up my neck. "I wasn't spying on you, man. I didn't know you could see." He cut me off. "But you didn't look away either." That stung. Not because he was wrong, but because he was exactly right. I finally forced myself to meet his gaze. "I'm sorry. That was messed up." Julian stared at me for a beat longer, then let out a breath. Not angry, more like tired. He ran a hand through his damp hair and stepped past me into the kitchen. "I'm gonna grab water," he muttered. I stood frozen, still not sure if this was the calm before the storm, or if the storm had already passed and I'd just missed it. He opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle, twisted the cap off with one hand. "So is this a thing?" My eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" He leaned against the counter, looking straight at me. "Do you look at other guys like that? Or was that just because it was me?" I wanted to melt through the floor. I didn't mean to. "Julian, I'm not some creep. I've never..." God, I don't even know what to say. "Just answer the question," he said, still calm, still unreadable. I sighed. "Yeah, I like guys, and yeah, okay, you're not exactly hard to look at." That got a small twitch at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile, but not angry either. He took a sip of water, then set the bottle down. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "You're my best friend," I said quietly. "And you're straight." I didn't want to make things weird. "They're already weird," he said. "Fair enough." There was a long silence between us, and for a second, I thought maybe he'd just walk away, go to his room and pretend it never happened. But he didn't. He stepped closer. "I'm not mad," he said. I've never thought about that kind of stuff. Not with guys, not until lately." That last part hung in the air. "What do you mean lately?" Julian scratched the back of his neck, glancing away like he was trying to figure something out himself. "I don't know. It's just you and me living together all the time we spend together. I guess I started wondering." My chest tightened. "Wondering what?" He looked at me again, eyes softer now. "What it would be like if I let something happen." The air in the room changed. Like everything around us suddenly faded out. The fridge hummed in the background. A drop of water fell from his hair onto his shoulder, and I swear my heart stopped. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to push, didn't want to read too much into it, but I couldn't ignore it either. He stepped a little closer. We were only a foot apart now. I could feel the heat radiating off his skin, still damp from the shower. "Do you want something to happen?" I asked, voice barely a whisper. Julian didn't answer. He just looked at me. Really looked at me. And I saw it then. The hesitation, the fear, but also the curiosity, the pull. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since that night we watched that dumb movie." I blinked. "The one where we fell asleep on the couch?" He nodded. "You didn't move when I put my head on your chest." I remember that. Neither of us moved. The air between us was thick now, not just with tension, but with something deeper, something dangerous and exciting. "You didn't seem bothered," he added, "not even a little." "I wasn't," I said quietly. He studied my face, and then, with zero warning, he reached out and lightly touched my wrist. "Would it be weird," he said, "if I asked you not to look away next time?" I didn't breathe for a full second. "Wait, what?" I said, barely above a whisper. Julian's fingers lingered on my wrist, light but steady. He didn't flinch. He didn't laugh like it was a joke. "I said," he repeated, "what if I didn't want you to look away next time?" I couldn't wrap my head around the words. My straight best friend, who I'd known for years, who dated girls, talked about girls, hooked up with girls, was standing here, still damp from the shower, asking if I'd watch him again. This had to be a dream, or a test, or maybe some cruel, confusing moment brought on by too much sun and not enough sleep. But his face was serious. Not cold, not mocking, just uncertain. And suddenly I realized maybe I wasn't the only one confused here. "I don't understand," I said slowly, heart thudding. Julian let out a breath through his nose, his gaze dropping for the first time. "Neither do I." We stood there, the silence between us thick and full of everything we weren't saying. Then he ran a hand through his hair and stepped back, giving me space. "I'm gonna go get dressed," he said. "But we should talk. Like, really talk." I nodded. "Yeah, okay." He turned and walked down the hallway, towel still slung low, leaving a faint trail of wet footprints behind him. I leaned against the kitchen counter, heart racing, hands slightly shaking. What the hell just happened? The next half hour dragged. I sat on the edge of the couch, legs bouncing, trying not to overthink, trying not to replay the moment, but it kept looping in my head. His voice, the look in his eyes, that exact sentence. What if I didn't want you to look away next time? When Julian came back, he was in a clean t-shirt and gym shorts, hair still damp, but combed back. He looked more like the Julian the first knew, casual, chill, untouchable. But something in his expression was different. He didn't have his usual grin. His shoulders were tense. He sat down in the armchair across from me, resting his elbows on his knees. "So," he started, "this might sound dumb, but can I ask you something real?" "Yeah," I said immediately. "Of course. Do you think," he paused, "it's possible to be curious but not gay?" I blinked. Totally, that's like incredibly normal. He nodded slowly, as if he needed to hear it from someone else. "I've never thought about guys like that before," he said. "Like, I've noticed stuff, I'm not blind. But lately, I don't know, I think about you. Not just in the way you looked at me tonight, but other stuff too. I catch myself wondering what it'd be like." I stayed quiet. "Let him keep going." Julian rubbed his hands together, fidgeting. "Like that time you fell asleep in my bed after your nightmare? I didn't want to wake you up. It felt, I don't know, safe, good? I felt something tighten in my chest. I've had it close with a lot of girls," he said, eyes still down, "but none of them make me feel as comfortable as you do." "You don't owe me an explanation," I said gently. "I know," he replied, "but I need to give myself one." We were quiet again. The ocean outside was crashing faintly, rhythmic and steady. Then he looked up. "I guess I want to know what it would feel like," he said, "if I let something happen between us." He didn't look away this time. His eyes stayed locked on mine, like he was daring me to say something. "You're not a science experiment, Julian," I said carefully. "I'm not going to just be your test run so you can figure stuff out." "I know," he said quickly. "I wouldn't do that. I'm not trying to use you. It's just," he paused again, "you're the only person I feel safe enough to even ask this with." That hit harder than I expected. The vulnerability in his voice, the way he was unraveling, slowly, in front of me. "I don't know what I want," he admitted, "but I think I want to try." He stood up and stepped over to the couch, then sat down beside me. Not too close, but closer than usual. Our knees touched. "I'm not asking you to do anything," he said. I don't want to pretend this didn't happen, that I didn't catch you watching. That part of me didn't like it." I turned to face him. "I won't make a move," I said. "Not unless you're sure." He nodded once. "Fair." Then, almost shyly, he leaned into me, just enough that our shoulders touched. And we sat there, side by side, the ocean outside echoing quietly behind the walls. It wasn't sexual. Not yet. It was something else entirely. Something terrifying and kind of beautiful. We sat there for a long time without saying anything, shoulder to shoulder, both pretending to watch the darkened TV screen, but fully aware of how close we were. Julian didn't move away. If anything, he leaned into the contact just a little more with every passing minute, like he was slowly letting himself feel it. Eventually, he broke the silence. "Do you ever wonder if we've always been like this?" he asked, his voice quiet. "Like, what?" He gave a small shrug. "Tense, but in a weirdly good way," I smiled, eyes still on the blank TV. "You mean emotionally repressed?" That made him laugh, just once, but it was real. "Maybe I've always known," he said after a second. "Not about you, about me. That there was something in me I didn't want to admit. That cracked something open in me I hadn't even realized I'd been bracing against." I turned toward him slightly, studying his profile. His jaw, his messy hair, the curve of his shoulder pressed against mine. "Can I ask you something?" I said. He nodded. Did you come into that shower knowing I'd be able to see you? Julian's lips parted, but no words came out for a second. Then he exhaled slowly. I didn't plan it, but I left the door open, and when I realized where you were sitting and that you hadn't moved, he finally looked at me. I didn't want you to stop. I felt my pulse surge in my throat. You didn't? Julian held my gaze. No. There it was again, that unmistakable shift in the air between us. He wasn't testing me. He wasn't messing with me. He was peeling something back, piece by piece, and letting me see it for the first time, and I didn't want to miss a second of it. Okay, I said softly. So what now? He leaned back on the couch, stretching his legs out, our knees still touching. His voice was steady but low. I don't want to rush into something I'm gonna regret. Not because of you, because of me. I've never been with a guy. I don't even know how I'd feel after. That's fair, I said. I wouldn't ask for anything you're not ready for. He paused again, biting his lip. I want to try something. Just small. I nodded slowly. Like what? Julian reached out, palm up between us. A quiet invitation. My heart pounded as I set my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine. Firm. Warm. It was such a simple thing, but it felt like everything. We sat like that for a while, our hands resting between us, breathing, syncing up like we were trying to find a rhythm we'd never allowed ourselves to explore. Then, without letting go of my hand, Julian spoke again. Can I stay in your room tonight? I turned to look at him. You serious? He nodded. Yeah, I don't want to be alone right now. But I don't want to make it a thing. No expectations. I just want to know what it feels like to fall asleep next to you. My voice caught a little in my throat. You sure? He nodded again, this time more firmly. Yeah, I'm sure. We brushed our teeth in silence, both pretending it was normal, both failing. His shoulder kept bumping into mine at the sink. Every time it did, neither of us moved. When we got to my room, I pulled back the covers and climbed in first, trying to act like it was no big deal, like I wasn't completely overwhelmed inside. Julian hesitated at the door, then flicked off the light and climbed in next to me. The bed wasn't tiny, but it wasn't huge either. There was no pretending not to touch in this space. Our legs brushed immediately. I stared at the ceiling. Is this weird? He asked, voice low. I thought about lying, about telling him no, but I didn't. Yeah, I said, a little. He was quiet for a second. Then he added, but not bad, weird. No, I agreed, not bad. He turned onto his side, facing me in the dark. I'm not going to do anything tonight, he said. I just want to be close. You already are. He reached out under the covers and found my hand again. And in that quiet moment, under the hum of the ceiling fan, wrapped in the dark, skin against skin, I felt something shift. Not just in him, in me too. Something we couldn't undo. I woke up the next morning to the sound of waves and the smell of sunscreen. For a second, I forgot where I was. The sunlight spilled in through the blinds, casting long slats across the wall. Then I felt it, warmth. A body close to mine, a thumb lazily brushing the back of my hand. Julian was still there. He hadn't let go of me all night. I turned my head slowly, expecting him to be asleep. But he wasn't. He was already watching me. Morning, he said, voice groggy, low. Morning, I replied, trying to sound more casual than I felt. He looked at me for a long beat, then rolled onto his back and sighed deeply, staring up at the ceiling. I didn't sleep like that in a long time. Like what? I asked. Safe? He said. Grounded. I don't know. Just not faking anything. That hit me harder than I expected. I didn't know Julian was faking anything. He always seemed like the guy who had it together. Confident, relaxed, sure of who he was. but maybe that's what made it so easy to miss. I sat up slowly, legs hanging off the side of the bed. "You hungry?" Julian chuckled behind me. Always. We ended up throwing together a lazy breakfast. Eggs, toast, too much coffee. He hovered behind me while I cooked, way too close to be just a friend, and every time he leaned over to grab something, I felt his chest brush against my back. Whether it was intentional or not, I didn't know, but I wasn't complaining. After we ate, we took our coffee onto the deck, the beach breeze cutting the morning heat. We sat in silence for a while, watching the waves crash. I thought maybe we were slipping back into old rhythms. Comfort, safety, no pressure. But Julian had other plans. He cleared his throat, still looking out at the water. "So, about last night," I turned to him, bracing myself. "I'm not confused," he said. "I thought I was, but I'm not." My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" He finally looked at me. "I liked what happened. And I like you, I just don't know what to do with that yet." I felt a strange mix of relief and tension in my chest. "You don't have to do anything, Julian. There's no deadline." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, but I don't want to drag you into a mess either. That's the last thing I want." "You're not a mess," I said. He looked back out at the ocean. "You don't know everything about me." "Then tell me." He hesitated. "Then, you're the first person I've ever let see this side of me. The first person I've even considered anything like this with." That mattered. I could feel it in the way he said it, the weight behind his words. "You ever think," he added, "that maybe we were supposed to find each other in this way? Like, maybe this is what it was building to the whole time?" I was quiet for a moment. "I don't know, but I'm glad we're here now," he nodded. "Me too." Then he turned his body toward me, pulling one leg up onto the bench. "I want to kiss you," he said. That caught me completely off guard. My breath hitched. "You don't have to," I said quickly. "Not if you're not ready." I didn't say I had to. I said I want to. The way he looked at me right then, it wasn't lust. It wasn't confusion. It was something raw, something open. So I let him. He leaned in slowly, eyes not leaving mine, giving me time to back away if I needed to. But I didn't. When our lips finally touched, it wasn't fireworks. It wasn't dramatic. It was soft, tentative, warm, like a question. And when I didn't pull away, he kissed me again. Longer this time. A little more sure. When we finally broke apart, Julian exhaled. "Okay," he said, voice shaky. That felt right. "It did," I said, my heart pounding. He rested his forehead against mine. "You're gonna ruin me," I smiled. "Maybe, but I'll take good care of you." After the kiss, everything shifted. Not in a dramatic way. The world didn't explode, the sky didn't change color, but something between us was undeniably different. Julian didn't retreat. He didn't make excuses or pretend like it hadn't happened. He stayed close, even pulled me back into a soft kiss later that afternoon when we were lying on the couch, watching some dumb action movie we'd both seen 100 times. It was still new, awkward in small ways. Sometimes he'd get quiet and zone out for a while, and I'd wonder if he was regretting everything. But when I'd ask him if he was okay, he'd always nod, sometimes grab my hand, like he just needed a second to remember he didn't have to keep everything locked up anymore. We didn't go further than kissing that weekend. Not because we didn't want to, but because Julian needed space to feel what this was, not rush into something he might panic about later. And honestly, that made me respect him even more. The last night at the beach house, we were sitting on the deck, wrapped in hoodies, legs brushing under a shared blanket. The moon reflected on the water like glass, the only sound the tide rolling in and out. Julian nudged me. "You still thinking about that first night?" I smirked. "The night I accidentally became a peeping Tom?" He chuckled. "I don't think it was an accident." I raised an eyebrow. You're the one who left the door open. He turned to face me, serious now. I'm glad you didn't look away. I didn't respond at first. I just let the words sit there, warm and raw between us. Eventually I said, "You're not scared?" "Terrified," he admitted, "but not of you. I'm scared of what comes next. Telling people. Figuring myself out. Changing how I've always seen myself." "That makes sense." He leaned his head against my shoulder. "But I feel safe with you. That's new for me." I let that sink in for a while. Julian wasn't just experimenting. He was discovering. Slowly, clumsily, but honestly. We stayed out there for hours, talking, laughing, kissing under the stars like some cheesy indie movie we would have rolled our eyes at 6 months ago. And when we finally climbed into bed, he didn't ask. He just pulled me in close, tucked his face into my neck and whispered, "I'm glad this happened." "I am too," I whispered back. He was asleep within minutes. I stayed awake a little longer, listening to the waves, feeling his breath against my collarbone, wondering how the hell I'd ever go back to normal after this. Because this wasn't just some one-time thing. This was the beginning of something. And we both knew it. We left the beach house the next morning. Julian drove. I watched him from the passenger seat, sunglasses on, one hand on the wheel, the other resting near the gear shift, just barely brushing my knee whenever we hit a bump. It was quiet for most of the drive, not tense, just different. Like we were both trying to hang on to whatever magic had lived inside those beach house walls, afraid it wouldn't survive the transition back to real life. Back to roommates, back to campus, back to people who thought they knew who we were. He broke the silence first, somewhere past San Jose. "So what now?" I looked out the window. "We keep it between us for now. No pressure, just see how it goes." Julian nodded. "Yeah, I like that. I don't want to rush this." Neither did I. We got back to our apartment around noon. Everything felt the same, but it wasn't. The furniture was in the same place. The fridge still had that half-empty jar of salsa we kept forgetting to throw out, but the air felt warmer, more fragile. That night, he didn't go to his room. He followed me into mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. No big conversation, no awkward hesitation. Just a quiet understanding that this was where he wanted to be. We laid in bed, facing each other in the dark. "I keep thinking about that moment," Julian whispered. "Which one?" "When I caught you watching me." I swallowed. "Yeah?" "I wasn't angry," he said. "I was relieved. That caught me off guard." "Relieved?" He nodded. "It meant someone saw me, like really saw me. Not just the soccer guy, or the chill roommate, or the straight dude who has it all figured out." I reached for his hand under the blanket. He laced his fingers with mine. "You never had to pretend with me," I said. "I know that now," he whispered. He leaned in and we kissed again, soft and slow. The kind of kiss that doesn't ask for anything more. The kind that simply says, "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." And he didn't. Weeks passed. Then months. We didn't come out right away. He needed time. I gave him all of it. But we lived together differently now. There were quiet touches in the kitchen, long glances that lingered during movie nights. The kind of inside jokes only two people who've been through something could share. Eventually, he started calling me babe by accident. Then not by accident. And one night, out of nowhere, he posted a picture of us on Instagram. Just the two of us on the couch, our legs tangled, my head resting on his chest. No caption, no explanation. He didn't need one. The comments flooded in. Questions, some support, some confusion. But Julian didn't flinch, didn't delete it, didn't back down. He looked at me from across the room, phone still in hand, and said, "They'll figure it out. I already have." I didn't say anything. I just walked over, kissed him, and smiled against his lips. Because he was right.